Alright guys, welcome back to another video. So in this one we're going to be testing out some different ways to color wood with a porous mixture. I know that sounds really weird, but what we're going to be experimenting with today is aniline dye or stain and milk paint. Now I've done a little bit of work with milk paint. I haven't actually shown any on any of the YouTube videos as far as I know, but I have built some stuff and played around with it just a little bit. Just off camera. So I kind of know what to expect from milk paint, but there's some stuff that I want to try with it, doing some mixing and that to just see what I can create. So both the aniline dye and the milk paint are going to become very important for a project that I have planned that I've been wanting to do for so long now, but I haven't been able to find a good way to do it. Because basically the idea for that project is I want to build a nice sideboard out of ash and then have some walnut panels in it. And I want to use ash because when you paint ash or you stain ash, it looks really good. But the trick is that I wanted to do it in a fairly traditional manner. And so the first challenge here was figuring out what kind of paint to use. So if you use like a modern latex paint, if you just paint it over the wood when it's all nicely sanded up, you're gonna lose all of that wood grain. And so milk paint is the solution to the paint side of the problem. Because milk paint is made from some kind of a milk protein mixed with some other stuff. I know that there's like lime and other weird stuff in it. And so what happens when you use it on wood is it acts very similar to a stain almost. It's a much thinner paint compared to like a modern latex paint. So it actually soaks into the wood. And so any grain or texture that you have in the wood is going to show through the paint a lot better compared to something like a latex paint. So I don't know if this is actually true or not, but from my experience, just messing around with some of this milk paint, it basically acts much like a stain, but in a way that it has a much flatter, much more consistent color. So stain will usually go in and change the actual physical color characteristics of the wood, whereas the milk paint will still soak into the wood, you still get all that nice grain texture, but it'll be a nice flat, even color all the way through. So there's pros and cons to both. The other thing that we're going to be messing around with today is the aniline dyes. Now this is something that I just found out when I was just browsing around on Lee Valley's website. I was trying to figure out a way to stain the inside of this piece. And if you're wondering why I want to stain it, it's purely because I don't really like the natural color of ash. It's one of the woods that I kind of like it, but I kind of hate it at the same time. And just for the project, for the piece that I have in mind, it's not the right color. So I'm thinking that if I can stain the inside of it, that'd look really cool. But my problem is that the only stain that I've ever known about is stuff like this Minwax penetrating oil stain. So the problem with modern stains is that they have a lot of other stuff in them. They're a combination of pigments, oils, all that kind of stuff. And so the trick is that when you stain with it, you can't put like a natural oil finish over it. And as you guys know, I'm a huge fan of like tried and true oils or pretty much any natural oil finish. You can't put that over modern stains or modern paints especially. So in the mindset of trying to keep this piece somewhat traditional in its coloring and all that, I wanted to find some kind of a porous stain and a porous paint, which is exactly what both of these are. And so what I mean when I say porous is when you think of like a latex paint, it creates a solid surface. And most paints that you see at like Lowe's or Home Depot will all talk about how they're, water resistant, stain resistant, whatever. You can splash water on them and nothing's gonna soak through them. Whereas the problem is that's exactly what I want to have happen. I want to be able to paint the piece of wood and then apply a nice natural oil coating over it so that we're still protecting the wood and protecting the paint at the same time. Same thing with these stains is when you apply something like this Minwax stain to the wood, you're going to notice a very different texture to the wood. It's going to lose a lot of that natural feeling because there's a lot of other stuff in those stains that are, I think that there's even some like polymers and some, just other plastic stuff in these stains that's meant to really seal up the pores. So again, modern stains are meant to seal the pores of the wood and act more like a finish, whereas I don't want it to do that. So that's where this aniline dye, stain, whatever you want to call it, is going to come in really handy because it's a porous solution, so it's just going to change the color of the wood. It's not actually going to do anything to protect or coat or finish the wood. It's just purely going to change the color, which is exactly what I want it to do. And so I've got a whole bunch of these ash pieces that I just milled up. I got them all hand sanded up to 180 grit, so it's exactly how they would go into a final project. So we're going to see just what I can do here in order to create the look that I'm going for. So to start with the milk paint, all I'm going for here is just to test out some different mixtures. So I have this Lexington green milk paint, and this stuff is sold at Lee Valley. I also have some of this black iron from the Real Milk Paint Company. Milk paint is one of those things that is kind of challenging to actually find. There's only two places I could find here in Calgary that actually sell it. One is, way up north, just on the outskirts of Calgary, and then the other one is Lee Valley. And so the trick is that you're fairly limited in your options and your colors when you go with something like milk paint. If you go to, Home Depot, you can pick out from thousands of colors and they can mix up basically any color you want. Whereas with milk paint, you're kind of limited by what they can give you. So the one thing I have found online is that mixing milk paint is actually a super easy thing to do. So I know overall the color that I'm kind of going for this project is I want a very dark green. I'm going for almost a really dark, not quite olive, but like grayish green kind of color. And so I think that this Lexington green from Old Fashioned, the genuine, super long name there. But I think that this Lexington green color combined with either this black iron, which is a little bit more on the gray side, or just pure black, one of these two combined with this Lexington green, I think is going to give me the shades that I want. So I'm going to make 3 different mixtures here, one of just Lexington green, and then one with black, and then one with this black iron mixed into it. And we're just going to see how the color changes. Then for the aniline dye, all I'm trying to figure out here is just what happens. So this one that I have, I believe, is the dark oak from Lee Valley. Yeah, so it's a dark oak aniline dye. And mainly I just want to see how it reacts with the ash. I want to see how it looks because I have no idea how this stain is going to look. I can't find any forums or blog posts or anyone talking about aniline dyes or stains. So it's something that I'm really interested to try out because it could be an absolute game changer for me. So I've got a few mason jars and a wash tub here. I'm going to go get this stuff all filled up, get some water in here, get some nice warm water in a little thermos so that I can do all my mixing out here and start to figure out what I actually want to do. So results are in, and I have to say that this was very interesting, and I'm glad I did spend some time testing this. So first off, the aniline dye. Now this, as you can probably tell by the color of this piece of wood, that is absolutely wrong and not at all what it's supposed to be. I would love to get my money back from Lee Valley because that little packet of dye powder costs 15 bucks. I'll throw a little sample thing up in the video here to show you guys what, kind of got the color that they advertised. But this is supposed to be a dark oak, and this is just some kind of like gross mustard stained looking wood right now. So I thought that it might just be because it was on ash, but I tried it on a piece of white oak and it looks the exact same. So again, it's not at all what Lee Valley advertises as being the actual color. So this is one of those reasons why I believe Lee Valley does not have reviews on their website because some of their products like this are just so pathetically bad. So I might try another one of their dyes, maybe something that's a little bit darker shade. If this stain had come out the same color as it was advertised to have come out, it would have been perfect. But I might try one of the other ones, one of the rosewoods or one of the walnut ones, something that is a bit darker, more brown, that might work out a little bit better. But yeah, this one is definitely not going to work, and it really sucks to throw away 15 bucks like that. And so on a more positive note, the milk paint actually worked out perfectly. I was able to get, using the Lexington green and the black, I was able to get the exact color that I want, which is this bottom one right here. A nice, really dark green. So it's very dark, it's an almost black color, but it still has that nice green tone to it. And the interesting thing about milk paint is when it dries right now, it's gonna be very flat, very matte colored, much like how wood looks. But as soon as you put a nice coating of oil over it, it'll bring back a lot of that vibrancy and look a lot better. So the interesting one is this one right here. So this one was a mixture of the Lexington green and black iron from the Real Milk Paint Company. And so the only real difference between black and black iron is that the black iron is a little bit more on the gray side. So it's a little bit of a lighter overall shade. The way that I did the mixtures is the first one was I added in half a teaspoon of the black iron, and you can see that there's not a huge difference between it and the original paint color. The second one, I added in a teaspoon of the black iron, and again, there's not a whole big difference. The last one here, I did 4 teaspoons of the black iron, and that's where we actually started to get a little bit more of a shift to a gray. So this is a little bit on the lighter side, but I'm gonna see once I put the oil on this, if this actually goes to a similar color to what I want. Because I'm kind of between those two darker ones there. Both of those are kind of right in the tonal range that I'm looking for. Mainly what I'm going for here is a more grayish green. Just a plain Lexington green is a very, almost an emerald green. So I don't like that color whatsoever. It's a hideous color. But as soon as you start mixing in this gray, it gets to a very nice, much more muted color, which I really like. I'm gonna let these samples dry for a couple hours before I throw some oil on them. And so the next thing that we're gonna try out here is which oil is actually gonna work out better. So I'm going to put a piece of tape down the middle here, and on one side we're gonna try and true oils, and on the other side I'm gonna try some Osmo, just to see which one is gonna work better. Because I think this might be a perfect opportunity for Osmo, because it'll darken up the colors, but it won't change them as much as the linseed-based tried and true oils. So that'll be a really interesting test. I should also mention that the way that I applied the paint to these pieces is not how I'd apply it on an actual workpiece. The idea with the milk paint, as far as I found it when working with a wood like ash, which is very porous, what you want to do is apply a coat and then go back over with like a maroon Scotch-Brite pad and grind that paint into the surface of the wood. Then that'll really get the paint acting much more like a stain, and you'll get a lot of that grain showing through. And you do that 2 or 3 times, you build up those coats and you just keep grinding it in each time, and you get a really cool result. And I actually forgot I have a perfect example of it. This is a tray I made earlier in the summer. So it's the same wood we're using here, so white ash. And then we've got the milk paint where I actually ground it in. You can see how you get all that beautiful grain showing through the paint. This is the exact look that I'm going for. Okay, so we've got a coat of finish on there. We got a little bit of Osmo, a little bit of tried and true on both sides. And I have to add here, really quickly, if Osmo already didn't impress me, their can design really makes me mad. I haven't touched this since I made the bed. So a few weeks have gone past, maybe, not even, just under a month. I literally had to destroy the lid of this can just to try and get it open. So I don't like Osmo. I don't like it whatsoever, but the finish is okay. I will give it that the finish is okay. But anyway, now that we've got some oil on there, we can see how much the color has actually changed. So this side here is the tried and true, and then this side is the Osmo. Basically, they have the exact same effect on the color of the wood, so there's not really pros or cons for going with one over the other, as far as I can tell. So I'm still definitely leaning to this green and black mixture. I think that gives us the best color. It's kind of a darkish, bluer tone of a green. It's hard to describe, but yeah, this is kind of the look that I'm going for right here. Either one of these two is exactly what I want. Moving over to the more green and gray combination, this one is pretty close to what I want too. Then there's one on the bottom here. I've got another piece of ash here that I'm going to I'm going to coat the entire board with this bottom color, because this bottom one, what I did here is I did 3 parts of the black iron and then 1 part of the green. So this is definitely a much more gray hued color, but it has that slight green tinge to it. I didn't really think that much of it when I put it on here. You know, I wanted to test it out and see how it looks, but actually seeing it with some oil on it, I want to try putting it on a full board to see just how good it actually is going to look. Then of course we have our aniline stain, and yeah, the oil did not save it whatsoever. It still looks absolutely disgusting. I have no idea why the color looks like this. But that's gonna do it for this video, guys. So if you have any questions about milk paint or this aniline stain, I know nothing really went well with the stain there. But if you have any questions about any of this stuff, feel free to hit me up in the comments. But as always, guys, I do hope you enjoyed this video, and I will see you in the next one.